President Trump was speaking at the Knesset in Israel after Hamas released all 20 hostages who were still in captivity as part of the historic peace agreement. And during his speech, wouldn't you know it, a couple of protesters started to act out. But in Israel, they handle protesters a lot different than we do back here.
And they somehow can relate to him. I've known him for many years, and I've seen it over and over again.
להוציא את חבר הכנסת עודה, להוציא אותו מהאולם, להוציא אותו מיד, החוצה, החוצה.
Please expel this Knesset member. Please expel this Knesset member.
להוציא גם את חבר הכנסת כסיף. להוציא את חבר הכנסת כסיף מהאולם.
Expel Knesset member Kasif out of the hall. Please expel him immediately.
The Knesset members were picked up and hauled away by security within seconds. Less than a minute it took to have all of their little papers and their protest signs ripped out of their hands and then thrown out of the chamber.
Sorry for that, Mr. President.
President Trump had the greatest reaction, by the way, once the crowd settled down.
That was very efficient.
Yeah. We need similar efficiency here in Congress whenever Al Green starts waving his cane at President Donald Trump, or Jasmine Crockett or any of the others start yelling out truly ridiculous stuff. But it wasn't, other than that moment, it was an incredibly historic and bringing together of two different and disparate groups in Israel. It was the first time, really, I think, that everybody in the Knesset was able to stand together and applaud for something. And that something was President Donald Trump and the peace he brought to the region. Never before had all of the parties stood together and clapped and cheered and celebrated. But today is a day truly of celebration. And that's not just me saying that. That's even CNN, who was on the ground heralding President Donald Trump and his achievements today.
And welcome back to CNN's breaking news coverage, as we are covering a historic moment here in Israel, because for the first time in 2 years, over 2 years, 738 days, Hamas holds no living hostages in its captivity for the first time.
And that is, of course, because of President Donald Trump and his tireless work to bring peace to the region. And the hostages have been freed. We have video of the hostages coming back and meeting their parents and their loved ones, and the emotion and the passion, and just you can just see the joy that these people have when their loved ones are released back into their arms. There's men and women meeting with their husbands and their wives and their sisters and their brothers. It is truly a moment that a lot of people never thought would happen, except for President Donald Trump. He said from day one, we are never going to forget them. We are going to do everything we can, and we are going to make sure that this happens. And not just President Donald Trump, not just people here in the United States of America, not just the families of hostages, but every country in the region came together and is very thankful. And they all agree that the reason this happened was because of the change in power here in the United States of America. The old regime never would have been able to accomplish something like this. But as soon as President Donald Trump won the election, everything globally shifted.
No American president has ever done more for Israel. And as I said in Washington, it ain't even close. It's really not a match. Mr. President, today we welcome you here to thank you for your pivotal leadership in putting forward a proposal that got the backing of almost the entire world. A proposal that brings all our hostages home.
That was truly an exciting moment when Benjamin Netanyahu stood up to thank President Donald Trump in his speech, and again reiterate that when it comes to Israel-United States or Israel-American relations, there have been some treacherous times in the past few decades. We've had some presidents who did not stand with Israel, did not realize that Israel was under constant attack, and tried to withdraw support from the United States. Doing so would have been detrimental to any kind of lasting peace. And President Donald Trump pointed that out in his speech. He said, look, the only way to truly bring peace to the Middle East is for unwavering support of Israel. And once the rest of the Arab world, and really the entire world, realizes that the United States and Israel are inseparable in their goals to, not get killed by terrorists, whomever they are, that's when peace will come. And that is why, as Bibi Netanyahu said,
Donald Trump is the greatest friend that the state of Israel has ever had in the White House.
again, overwhelming and unanimous support from the Knesset as they all come together to clap and applaud for President Donald Trump. And Bibi Netanyahu made another surprise announcement about a very, very specific honor that Israel bestows on people, typically Israelis, but another historic first for the president in the Middle East today.
I have submitted your nomination to be the first non-Israeli recipient of the Israel Prize, Israel's highest award. As to that other prize, just a question of time, you'll get it. But I want you to get the Israel Prize, our highest award, to our greatest friend.
Yeah, Nobel Schmobel, says Benjamin Netanyahu. Don't worry about that other peace prize. Eventually, you may or may not get that, but this one is the highest Israeli honor, and it's never before been given to a non-Israeli citizen. Wouldn't you know it, President Donald Trump is the one who deserves it and the one who is going to be, I guess, nominated. And based on the reaction that we saw from the Knesset, I would be shocked. I would be shocked if somebody else won this one. And man, wouldn't that just be a slap in the face if that happened? But it appears that Donald Trump is the shoo-in for the Israeli prize. And then, of course, Donald Trump got up to speak, and he began his speech by saying, man, you guys talk a lot, huh? You guys, hold on, let me grab you that clip. Donald Trump got up and said, look, here's the deal. I got to get to Egypt because we've got more peace accords we've got to sign.
Interestingly, right now, as soon as I'm finished, I'm quite late. You've kept me quite late between opposition leaders and Bibi's brilliant but very long speech. I thought I was going to run up here, make a speech, and then head to Egypt. It didn't work out, though. And you made a pretty long one, too, sir. But I liked what you all said. It could be worse. Supposing on top of it, I didn't like what you said. That would be no good, Ron, would it? Ron, you did a great job, by the way, Ron.
Yeah, it was a long speech. You all gave long speeches. You were very wordy over here, but I liked what you said because you kept applauding me and giving me prizes and saying that I'm the greatest friend you've ever had, all of which, by the way, is true. And then President Donald Trump said, look, it's the glory as with everything in this world, glory as with everything in this administration, glory as with every peace agreement, doesn't belong to me. It doesn't belong to Benjamin Netanyahu. It doesn't belong to all of the countries that came together. It certainly doesn't belong to Hamas. It belongs to God.
Mr. Speaker, esteemed members of the Knesset and cherished citizens of Israel, we gather on a day of profound joy, of soaring hope, of renewed faith, and above all, a day to give our deepest thanks to the Almighty God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
It was a truly heartfelt moment from the president. And as he said, look, this is not just the end of an era. This is not just the end of peace, but this is the beginning of Israel's own new golden age.
This is not only the end of a war. This is the end of an age of terror and death and the beginning of the age of faith and hope and of God. It's the start of a grand concord and lasting harmony for Israel and all the nations of what will soon be a truly magnificent region. I believe that so strongly. This is the historic dawn of a new Middle East.
Yeah, a new Middle East, a richer, safer Middle East where all the countries work together instead of the countries battling with each other repeatedly. And it's going to take a lot of work, and it's a very fragile situation, and there's a lot more to go. And it's going to take not just the current leaders to get this done, but future leaders to remain and to continue to fight for this kind of peace and work together. And hopefully the spirit that is happening in Israel right now will never, ever be forgotten. Again, not just by Israel, but by every Arab nation that has come together for this accord.
And let me also convey my tremendous appreciation for all of the nations of the Arab and Muslim world that came together to press Hamas to set the hostages free and to send them home. We had a lot of help. We had a lot of help from a lot of people that you wouldn't suspect, and I want to thank them very much for that. It's an incredible triumph for Israel and the world to have all of these nations working together as partners in peace, and it's pretty unusual for you to see that, but it happened in this case. This was a very unusual point in time, a brilliant point in time. Generations from now, this will be remembered as the moment that everything began to change, and change very much for the better. Like the USA right now, it will be the golden age of Israel and the golden age of the Middle East. It's going to work together.
And that is something that Donald Trump has been envisioning for a very, very, very long time. A new coalition, not just from the Abraham Accords, but a new coalition with Qatar and Saudi Arabia and Egypt and Israel, and, who will work on getting Iran and Lebanon in the mix. But everybody coming together to say there's not going to be any more war. This is going to be an opportunity for investment in our future, investment in our people, investment in our land, investment in our relationships with others. And we're going to have a thriving Middle East, similar to what's been going on in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, similar to what's been going on in the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. They're looking for a peaceful solution that involves economic benefit for all parties involved. And if all parties involved can benefit economically, they will keep the peace, because no one's going to bomb their own investments. That just doesn't happen. And Donald Trump said, look, we saw it with the Abraham Accords. All four countries have stuck to the Abraham Accords throughout all of this tumult. And we're going to continue to grow this coalition year after year after year.
All across the Middle East, the forces of chaos, terror, and ruin that have plagued the region for decades now stand weakened, isolated, and totally defeated. A new coalition of proud and responsible nations is emerging. And because of us, the enemies of all civilization are in retreat. Thanks to the bravery and incredible skill of the Israeli Defense Forces and Operation Rising Lion.
The enemies of all are in retreat. The enemies of the world, not just Israel and the United States, but the enemies of all are in retreat. And that is something that President Donald Trump said and truly believes at his speech in the Knesset. Now, while all that's going on across the world, and while peace is being found and there's new coalitions being built, and while Israel is celebrating today, back here at home, we still are in the midst of a government shutdown. As we celebrate Columbus Day, there are a lot of people who aren't just taking off work because it's a holiday. They're taking off work because they're furloughed, and they're furloughed because Chuck Schumer is afraid that he's going to get primaried in his reelection bid in 2028. They're getting they're furloughed, and a lot of them are going to be reduced permanently because the Democrats refuse to come to the table and vote to keep the government open. They're holding us hostage. And J.D. Vance, the vice president of the United States, went on the Sunday shows yesterday, most notably ABC's This Week, I guess that was Saturday, with George Snuffleupagus, and he talked about how the shutdown of America is like a hostage situation.
This isn't a deal making. This isn't a negotiation. This is hostage shaking. The Chuck Schumer has not said to us, this is what we need. He said that unless you give us what we need, we're going to shut down the government. That is a totally different thing. If Chuck Schumer wants to come into the Oval Office or come to my house, he is welcome to talk about how to fix health care policy for Americans. Of course, we want to lower insurance premiums. We want to make sure that the skyrocketing health care costs of the Biden administration start to level off and hopefully come down. That's one conversation. But you don't come into the Oval Office and say, unless you, the President of the United States, give us everything that I want, I'm going to shut down the government. I'm going to deny low-income women and children their food benefits. I'm not going to pay the troops. That is what Chuck Schumer has put us in the situation of doing. We don't negotiate with a person who has taken the entire federal government hostage over a health care policy dispute. And I think that basic principle. You saw Barack Obama say this to Ted Cruz and a number of Republicans. We want to talk about health care policy, but we're not going to shut down the government over this. That's all that Donald Trump is now saying to Chuck Schumer and the far left Democrats. We are not going to negotiate over opening the government. We'll negotiate on health care policy, but only once you do your job and open up the people's government.
Yeah, that was Face the Nation, by the way. Sorry about that. Sometimes I get George Snuffleupagus and Margaret Brennan confused. They look very sad. But there was a tumultuous moment that a lot of people are angry about when George Snuffleupagus and the folks at ABC News cut the vice president off, just cut him off. Ended the interview and cut him off mid-sentence because they didn't like what he was saying.
I don't know what tape you're referring to, George. I saw media reports that Tom Homan accepted a bribe. There's no evidence of that. And here's, George, why fewer and fewer people watch your program and why you're losing credibility. Because you're talking for now 5 minutes with the Vice President of the United States about this story regarding Tom Homan, a story that I've read about, but I don't even know the video that you're talking about. Meanwhile, low-income women can't get food because the Democrats and Chuck Schumer have shut down the government. Right now, we're trying to figure out how to pay our troops because Chuck Schumer has shut down the government. You are focused on a bogus story. You're insinuating criminal wrongdoing against a guy who has done nothing wrong instead of focusing on the fact that our country is struggling because our government's shut down. Let's talk about the real issues, George. I think the American people would benefit much more from that than from you going down some weird left-wing rabbit hole where the facts clearly show that Tom Homan didn't engage in any criminal wrongdoing.
It's not a weird left-wing rabbit hole. I didn't insinuate anything. I asked you whether Tom Homan accepted $50,000, as was heard on an audio tape recorded by the FBI in September 2024, and you did not answer the question. Thank you for your time this morning.
No, George, I said that I don't.
Up next, we'll be right back.
That was the fake news media cutting off the vice president because he's spitting truth on their network, and they just can't have that. They just can't have that. If people start speaking the truth on their network, then all of their fake news credibility will be washed up. Listen, there's a lot as Donald Trump heads to Egypt now to sign these accords, and as we celebrate Columbus Day, and as there's I guess tons of reaction to the hostages being released. We will continue later today with our second daily podcast. Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. We go live every day at 1 p.m. Eastern time. You can watch us on any of our streaming platforms, or you can check out the podcast on any of our podcast platforms too. The best way to find out where we are is to go to markkaye.com, markkaye.com. Click the big red button that says I want the podcast. Download, subscribe, listen, and enjoy.